after the surgery, they pay the bill, not you. No copays, no deductible, and no increase in your premium. Guess what? The error rate has gone to nearly zero, and the price of enrolling is cheaper than almost every other health plan around. We have got to have some changes here, and the Congress has got to pass legislation which will trigger these changes. It cannot be done overnight. It's a big, complex system. Millions of people work in it who are good people. Even the 2 million people who go to work every day, think of this, 2 million of them, and play tug-of-war over health care money, are good people, trapped in a bad system. You can't just throw them all on the street tomorrow. But the American Medical Association endorsed health care reform this time. They didn't do it 15 years ago. They did it because every single doctor I know has tripled what they're spending on their paperwork staff in the last decade. Their nurses are very often spending more time haggling with insurance providers than they are trying to treat patients. So we need to say to our senators and to our president, the House bill may not be perfect, the Senate bill won't be perfect, but we appreciate the fact that the leader of the Senate, Senator Reid, and the head of the Senate Finance Committee, Senator Baucus, and the people on the Senate Labor Committee have already voted out a bill, that they want a bill. We need a bill. Doesn't have to be perfect, has to push us in the right direction, and we need to do it now. Let me just give you one example. No matter which version of the Senate bill passes, all of the versions change the insurance so that there's no elimination for pre-existing condition, which will lower the administrative costs of the insurance companies dramatically because they won't have to hire anybody anymore to figure out how not to cover you or how to deny you coverage once you get covered. So that'll cut their administrative costs. And with those savings, among other things, all the new policies, including the existing ones now, will allow you to cover your own children up to age 26, which solves one of the biggest groups of people without insurance, and will cover without cost preliminary screenings for breast and prostate cancer, and will do a lot of other good things. This thing will help people from the get-go, whatever version we pass. And I don't want to get into the weeds here. I'm just telling you, people hire us to stand and deliver. We need to put a bill on the President's desk, and he needs to sign it. So in the State of the Union, he's not explaining why we haven't done health care. He's talking about how now we're going to go create jobs and make this a job-full recovery. It's really important. And I spent a lot of time all over the world. We are not going to be able to compete unless we get our health care costs in line with other countries. I was with Senator Stabenow from Michigan today. One of the reasons that General Motors tanked is they had $1,500 in health care costs in every single car they sold. Toyota had $110. You think you could spot them $1,400 and beat them in the marketplace? One of the General Motors executives, who was a friend of mine, used to joke, say, you know, I'm a health care company and I make cars on the side to cover my health care costs. This is killing us. One of the reasons people didn't get pay raises in this decade, and they did in the decade when I served, is that not only did we not produce enough jobs, but the income that businesses normally would allocate to pay raises went to paying a doubled health care premium, even as more people lost their insurance. This is huge economics. We've got to stick behind our party and the President and the people that are trying to do this. And we've got to tell them we know this is a big, complex system. We don't want to hurt the innocents. We know there'll be unintended consequences. We know you'll have to change it a little bit next year and the year after and the year after. And it may take 4 or 5 years to straighten it out. But I'm telling you, I know something about economics. I have been to more than 100 countries since I left office. If we don't do this, we're not going to bring America back to the economic leadership of the world. And it's the right thing to do. Second thing I want to say is, we have to do some things about education. And let me say, I personally believe that the Secretary of Education, President Obama brought up to Washington from Chicago, is doing a great job. And I'm not going to talk about that tonight. I'm going to tell you about higher education and the most important economic statistic that nearly no American knows. From the end of World War II to 2001, when I left office, through Republican and Democratic administrations alike, the United States always ranked first in the world in the percentage of our young adults with four-year college degrees. It was our gold mine. Everybody recognized we had the best network of higher education in the world, and we were always first. And people flocked from all over the world here. In this decade, we fell from first to 10th. That has devastating implications unless we reverse it. Now, part of it, to be fair, is because many of our competitors have put more money into sending their kids to college where they live. And we have to take our hats off to them and say that's your right and you're wise and farsighted and more power to you. But a lot of it is because the delivery system of higher education in many places has priced people out of the market. We have record enrollment in our community colleges now, and the unemployment rate going up has driven more people there. 14 or 15 states have now given their community colleges the legal authority to offer for-credit four-year courses because they're organized around people's lives. And because you just buy an education, you're not buying the athletic teams and the development office and whatever else you buy. But this is a very serious thing. I think the President's proposal to change the way we finance student loans and stop subsidizing what are basically sure things at the enormous cost to taxpayers and to guarantee them directly is the right proposal. When we did that on a volunteer basis when I was President, when I did on a volunteer basis what the President proposes to do with the student loan program in its entirety, the students saved $9 billion in loan repayment costs, $1,300 for every $10,000 they borrowed. And you, the taxpayers, you save $4 billion. Doesn't make sense, does it? How can we give students more aid and you save more money? I'll tell you why. Because once you made those loans more affordable, the young people who had their college degrees were honorable people. They wanted to pay their loans back, and they did. There was almost no default. This is another thing that President Obama is right about, and it hasn't gotten very much attention with all the debate over health care and the Afghanistan issue, but I am telling you we have got to get back to number one, and we've got to do it by changing the delivery system and making college more affordable, and I hope you will support them in that too. It's a very, very big deal. Now, the third thing we have to do is to do something about the way we produce and consume energy. Both because Al Gore is right, and now 95% of all the climate scientists agree that the world is warming at an unsustainable rate. So we're going to basically burn it up for our kids and grandkids. If the world just continues to warm at the same rate, by sometime around 2050, I'll have to live to be 104 to see it, but we're going to lose 50 feet of Manhattan Island, America's most valuable real estate. Thank goodness my foundation's office is in the middle of the island. We'll be fine. I mean, we're laughing about this, but let me tell you what it means. If we continue to see this, we're going to have to move roughly 100 to 150 million people in the world away from coastal cities. We already have a big water shortage in the world, and the population is growing, and not enough people can feed themselves, and farming's going to change. I grew up in a farming area. The farming of the world is going to move away further from the equator to cooler temperatures, and we could put at risk some of the things that are keeping the world from starving. The only places on earth that have significantly increased grain yields in the last decade are Brazil and Argentina, for a simple reason: they still have more than 20 feet of topsoil. But if you start burning those places up, they won't sustain them. So we got to do something about climate change, and the reason we haven't, and the reason we're reluctant, and the reason Copenhagen's conference in December may not produce a global agreement is that an enormous number of people still believe you cannot change the way you produce and consume energy without hurting the economy. And I'm here to tell you, I do this work now, it is not true. There were only, you know, when Al Gore and I did this Kyoto Treaty back in 1998, President Bush renounced it, but to be fair, before he renounced it, the U.S. Senate voted against it 98 to 0.